Hello everybody, Kelly Rice here, but I write under my pen name K.M. Rice. And I just wanted to remind you guys that I now have a Patreon account, so if you find that you're enjoying these videos and you want to help support me making them, you can contribute $1 a month. That's only $12 a year, and yes, it's just a monthly payment to help support me in my video blogs. And the reason I've set it so low is because I know most of you guys are like me. You're my fellow writers, or you're big readers, and most of us don't have a lot of expendable income. So I wanted to give you the opportunity to help me, but also make sure that it wasn't going to break anyone's bank. And of course the idea is that if a lot of people give $1, then you have a lot more than $1. So today I am going to be talking about the book Middle-earth from Script to Screen, Building the World of the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit. Now this is the book that I went to New Zealand to help write. Daniel Falconer is the main author. You'll recognize him from his work as a concept artist and designer on The Lord of the Rings, and also as an author writing the Hobbit Chronicles books. If you were big into the Hobbit films and you wanted to see a lot more concept art and details on the costumes and the makeup and the weaponry and all of that, he wrote those books. Excuse me, he didn't publish them, he wrote them. And he's also a fantastic guy. So I helped him write this book, and I thought I would give you guys a little bit of the background on that. If you didn't know, I have another web show called Happy Hobbit that I produce with my sister. The idea is to bring Middle-earth into your daily life. We're big Tolkien fans, big Lord of the Rings fans, and we've just been doing it for, since 2012. So, 5 years. That's a long time. And it has led us many wonderful places, including going to the premieres of the final 2 Hobbit films, interviewing the cast, and that's just wonderful. So my relationship with Weta Workshop, who are the folks who brought so many of the visuals that you see in The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit to life. There's Weta Workshop and there's Weta Digital, and they're 2 separate companies, but they're under the same umbrella, so to speak, and they produced most of everything that you see on screen. They do fantastic work, and I really appreciate the spirit of their creativity. They honor creativity, and they honor ingenuity, and they honor a gung-ho spirit more than anyone else I've ever encountered in Hollywood. So they work out of the Miramar Peninsula in Wellington, New Zealand. It's been nicknamed Wellywood instead of Hollywood, and as soon as I had the opportunity to go there and to work there, I leapt at it, because as you guys know from my video that I did titled Hollywood, Hollywood is a place where you kind of have to really be careful where you step and who you ally yourself with and all those sorts of things, and Wellington is so far void of a lot of that, and it is a place where people are there for the pure love of storytelling, which is obviously really appealing to me. Where's my tea? Actually, that's a lie, it's not tea, it's just hot water today. Which reminds me, I should show you my top. If I can move this giant book. Isn't she beautiful? She's a beautiful fairy. Yes. So I started a relationship with the company Weta Workshop before Happy Hobbit even existed, which goes contrary to what people think. People think that I had Happy Hobbit, it went viral, Peter Jackson started interacting with us, and it led to all these great opportunities. Well, it did. It led to a lot of great opportunities, but it didn't necessarily lead to work. That was from relationships I was building with the company before I even started Happy Hobbit. So, yeah. So I got the opportunity to work with Weta on a separate project a couple years before this one with another company as an independent contractor. And then when the concept for this book came around, they definitely thought of me, in part though because of Happy Hobbit and because of my Tolkien connections and because I'm a volunteer on theonebring.net. What they wanted, so Harper Design commissioned this book, and what they wanted was to have a fan's perspective. They wanted to make sure that there was someone who was helping the book along, who would be able to tell them, what do fans want? What are you looking for? Because they wanted this giant tome to kind of be the mother of all Middle-earth books. And I know Daniel was really excited to work on it because after doing the Hobbit Chronicles, there was a lot of material, behind the scenes, concept art and such for the Lord of the Rings that never saw the light of day, and he always felt like that merited being brought to the public in some way. So that's why I was contacted by them, and it was a really cool opportunity. I had to apply for a work visa to work in New Zealand. Fortunately, I qualified. And so I moved down there for 2 months, and I was an independent contractor working for Weta Workshop. So things changed a little bit. This was in November and December of 2015. When I signed on, I was going to be the co-author of the book. However, after I finished writing my portion and left, apparently things changed with the nature of the book. And looking at the finished product now, I see some of the stuff that I contributed was cut out. Like, I wanted to have these things called Tolkien tangents, where we bring in a little bit of Tolkien's biography and bring it into the parts of the story where I felt that it actually had an influence on his storytelling. For example, his experience in the Great War. Frodo's inability to reintegrate into society was reflective of what they called shell shock at the time, and PTSD, and what a lot of that generation went through, never feeling like they were able to connect with their peers who hadn't gone to war. So Frodo ultimately can't, and he leaves to this mythical place called the Undying Lands. But the other hobbits are able to integrate, but they hadn't necessarily been as affected as Frodo had with the ring, and all of his scars, you know, his ring wraith wound, you can see, is a symbol of the you know, the damage that seeing horror does to your mind. And so I wanted to enrich it with little things like that, and those ultimately didn't make it. So somewhere in the process, the decision was made that my title would no longer be co-author, but would be contributing writer, or additional writing and research. So I'm excited that my name's still attached. It's not on the cover, unfortunately, for me, but as I already showed you guys, here it is on the title page. This thing is so heavy that what I think I'm going to do... Where am I? There I am. I think I'm going to switch the camera to look over my shoulder to flip through some of the pages. Because like I said, this is really heavy, and holding it up here is going to be awkward, so we'll do that. Alright, kind of an odd angle, but here it is. Middle-earth, from script to screen. Foreword by Peter Jackson, written by Daniel Falconer. You open it up, you see some beautiful designs for hobbit holes. Daniel's little note to me. We made a book together, he says. It's very exciting because, as I've said before in my vlog, this is Hobbiton, the Hobbiton movie set. I've actually ran along this pathway, being Bilbo screaming, "I'm going on an adventure." I highly recommend going to Matamata to visit the movie set if you ever get out to New Zealand. But yes, as I was saying, it is surreal to finally be holding this in my hands, because when I left New Zealand, it was all basically just a Word document. Okay, here is the table of contents, done as a map. The first thing that I did when deciding to tackle this, because more or less Daniel was working on other projects at the time, and so I kind of, there was a rough idea of the, you know, what we wanted, but I kind of started off on my own, with his input, of course. And one of the first things that I wanted to do, because he and I were both like, how do we write a book with another person, and how do we write a book like this? And so I thought, well, how about we map where the Fellowship went, and map where Bilbo and the dwarves went, and see where they overlap. And maybe that would be... We were trying to think of, like, what order do we explore the spaces? So we thought maybe the order of their travels, because for the first portion, until they get to the Misty Mountains, it's pretty similar. But then they split up, and then we ran into the pickle of, well, then the Fellowship splits up, and this and that. And we couldn't do it chronologically and just follow Bilbo, then follow the Fellowship, because the idea was to show how these spaces are, you know, encountered by both parties. So I think that this is a great compromise by going from location to location like that. There's Peter Jackson and his nice foreword. One of the other things I did is there's a man named Michael Pellerin who did extensive interviews with all of the artists and with the cast and the crew, and that was one of the first things I did, was go through almost every single one of those and take out sections that I felt like were pertinent to this book. So here we go, Chapter 1, The Shire. Okay, so here's an idea that I did come up with. Right here you can see this little sectioned off piece of text. I started writing things that I was referring to as enrichments, separate from the Tolkien tangents, and what I wanted those to be were pieces of information for the fans who have read the books, who love the films, who might pick up this and be like, well, what is in here that I don't know? How is this, you know, any different than watching the behind-the-scenes footage, for example? So I wanted to include these enrichments because I felt like, as one of those fans, I would see these and I would be like, that's right! Because I don't know about you guys, but like I've read Fellowship of the Ring 3 times now, and every time I read it, it's almost as if I'm reading it again for the first time, because these books are so packed with information. You get excited about it, you think it's cool, and then if you're like me, you forget it. So I liked having things like this, these enrichments, kind of adding that extra layer to the storyline. And here they're showing how this was an artist's sketch of Hobbiton overlaid over the actual landscape that they found in Matamata upon which to build. So, wow, here they are building the smiles, the hobbit holes. They're just so beautiful, you just want to stay there. They have actual gardens. I mean, like this chapter will go into how they started growing the plants months before they knew that they were going to film, because they wanted it to look like the Shire had obviously been there for ages. And it works. Like, look how beautiful they are. Okay, what I think I'm going to do is skip ahead to... okay, this kind of thing, like Stattle, where they went to Stattle, that was super exciting to me, because that's a place you can go to in Lord of the Rings online. So I liked seeing places like that. Oh, and I'm glad that they kept this in. I was worried they were going to cut this. I wanted to make sure that we had little character descriptions for each horse in Middle-earth. So here's ones for Asphaleth. I'm not sure if they kept ones for like Snowmane, horses that you don't specifically see in the films. But there's definitely one for Bill the Pony, for Brego. Yeah, there's Bill the Pony. Yeah, and what I love about this book is there's stuff that I didn't even notice. For example, right here is where, obviously, the Council of the Ring occurs. That's the dais upon which they rest the ring, and Gimli tries to break it and everything. Well, that is also present in The Hobbit, however the space is being used differently. The space is being used as a feast location, and only if you're paying close attention will you notice that the dais is still there. So I was learning things while helping write this book. Okay, let me skip ahead to a place where I know that... See, the problem is it's been 2 years, and obviously the goal was for my writing and Daniel's writing to blend seamlessly together, so as a result, I couldn't exactly like go through and tell you, oh, I wrote that part or I wrote that part, unless it really jogs my memory. But one thing I do have mastery over, as opposed to other people who would have contributed to this, would be my knowledge of Old English. So that was definitely, here we go, that definitely came into play in Rohan, because if you know anything about Rohirric, the language of Rohan, Tolkien basically designed the Rohirrim, the Eorlingas, the people of Rohan, around the language of Old English or Anglo-Saxon. So that's what that's what these sections are, and that's why I know I contributed. Sorry, I remember writing this, describing what elven dreams are to people. And, you know, this will appeal to people, too, who maybe haven't read the books, but want to delve more into it. I was one of those people for a while. I was watching the films as they came out, and I didn't want to read the books because I didn't want it spoiled. So, but I did like all the little tidbits that I could get. Obviously, you have no excuse now. You can read the books. Oh, good. Here's Shadowfax and Brago and the Maras. I remember writing a lot of this stuff. Describing how, and I loved going through the quotes from all the different artists and picking out the parts where, you know, they're making reference to Anglo-Saxon culture. Meduseld, that's the name of the hall in, okay, here you go. This is something I wrote. I'll just read this to you. Meduseld. The name Meduseld was Old English, meaning mead house. In such halls, mead was a powerful, unifying drink amongst warriors and chieftains. So that's an example of something that I can definitely point to and say I wrote. I'm sorry, I just love Rohan. Look at the horses! I know this isn't super zoomed in, so you can't really see. And I won't keep this going for very long because I know that you can't see it all that well. Rohirric, here we go. In a clear nod to his source of inspiration, Tolkien gave the Rohirrim the real-life language of Old English. Not to be confused with what was spoken in Shakespeare's day. I had to throw that in there because so often when I tell people I studied Old English, people go, I love Shakespeare! And I'm like, dude, that's Middle English. You can understand that shiz. This stuff, another language entirely. Only a handful of words survived in modern English. But anyway, not to be confused with what was spoken in Shakespeare's day. Nerd rage. Old English, sometimes referred to as Anglo-Saxon, was the parent language of modern English and was widely spoken in England after the conquest by the northern tribes, including the Anglo-Saxons and Utes. The linguistic structure was quite different than modern English, and only a few words survived the Norman or French conquest of 1066, including sing, run, doom, and wife. Wife, that's how you probably pronounced it, and it doubled for wife and for woman, so it made translations difficult sometimes. And we don't know if for sure it doubled or if it's just the lexicon is incomplete and we don't have the exact references, though that word would be so common that you'd think there would be one, so it could be that it doubled. As the funeral procession of her cousin Theodred passed, the Lady Eowyn sang a haunting lament for her cousin, raw, beautiful, and from her heart. So this is another thing that I wanted in the book that was taken out. I wanted translations of all the songs, so if it were up to me, this part of the book, and probably if it were up to Daniel too, but ultimately decisions had to be made for word count and for imagery and all that stuff. I then had the lament for Theodred here written in Old English with the English translation. And I did that throughout with all of the Elvish, because I wanted to know, unless you have the CDs that have the translations in them, from the soundtracks, I wanted to know what is the lament for Gandalf, and they're singing about Mithrandir and Lothlorien. You know, what are these songs that you're, beautiful songs and melodies that you're hearing in the background? So, we do also get to see some locations that are not filmed, or at least you get to hear about them, like here, the Northern Wastes. This is concept art for the Northern Wastes. Maybe they are glimpsed in The Hobbit, actually. I didn't think about it in The Hobbit. The Withered Heath, I think, is in here somewhere. Here we go, the Grey Mountains and the Withered Heath. So these are places that you do not see at all in the films, but obviously were very important in the world of Tolkien. Like the Withered Heath is the birthplace of dragons. The Iron Hills, we also don't really get to see them directly, but that's where some of the dwarves come from. Run, we don't see that directly either, so that's really exciting to me. Yeah, so there we go. And then at the very end, there's a beautiful crew shot. And I get a little nod at the end. Daniel says, huge thanks to Kelly M. Rice for leaping in to help us break the back on the research and writing at a critical time. Thank you, Daniel. So, there we go. Alright, I'm gonna change the camera angle again. So what do you guys think? This is definitely a book for the Middle-earth lover in your life. And I meant to weigh it before I filmed this so I could tell you how much it weighs, because it is a hefty tome. It is already out in New Zealand. If you want to order it now, you can order it from What a Workshop. I believe you have the opportunity still to get these special calligraphy pieces by Daniel Reeve. So check that out. I'll put the link in the description. And if you want to order it here in the US, it comes out on November 21st, which is not that far away. Again, it's surreal to me that 2 years ago I was in Wellington, New Zealand working on this, and now here it is. And the embargo has been lifted. I'm no longer under contract. I can talk about it like I am right now with you guys. Before that, I could only make vague references and be like, I may have done something. One thing I do want to make clear to people, because I've had probably about 5 people so far come to me very excited, telling me, I can't wait to buy your book. I want to help support you. I'm definitely buying the Middleearth book. I don't have the money right now because it's steep. It's between $45 and $75. But when I get it, I'm going to get it because I want to support you. That's really, really, really sweet. But to those people, I want to say that if you want this book and it sounds fun, by all means save your money and go buy it or ask for it for Christmas or whatnot. But please, please, please do not do it out of any form of obligation to me. Like I said, I was an independent contractor on this book. That means that I have absolutely no stake in the royalties. So, again, I'm saying this because several people were like, well, aren't you going to get the royalties from it? And it's kind of awkward because you feel weird talking about money with people and like how your contract worked and all that. But I'm like, I'm not going to. I'm not sure where the royalties are going completely, but not to me. So if you were on the fence about it and you wanted to buy it because you wanted to support me and you wanted to support Happy Hobbit and all of that, then that's great because I still contributed to it. My name's still attached and all of that, but I'm not going to see a penny from that. You're better off donating to my Patreon or just, I don't know, buying my books. So yes, that's my spiel. Just to clear up any misunderstandings about that, because it is true, with all my original work, I do get a royalty from that, and you do support me by buying it, especially if you buy it directly from me through my Etsy shop where I can autograph them. By the way, The Watcher is out now. I should have filmed a special vlog talking about that, but the companion novel to Darkling is now out, and I should have them in stock around November 19th, and I will then be able to start selling them to you guys with personalized inscriptions and all that. Another note, several people have also messaged me asking if I could sign their copy of this great big heavy book. I certainly can. I feel bad that the shipping is going to cost so much, but if you're willing to ship it to me then pay to have it shipped back to you, I'm not sure how the logistics of that work, then I'm happy, very happy to do that. And I suppose if you're buying it in North America, it is cheaper to have it come to me and have me autograph it than it is to send it all the way to New Zealand for Daniel to do it and then all the way back. But keep your eyes on What a Workshop's social media. You never know when Daniel's going to be in North America at a convention. And if you haven't ever met him, I highly encourage you to. As I said, he's one of the most amazing men on the planet. Him and Sir Richard Taylor, who runs the company, and both of them and their families, they've been among the kindest people that I've ever met, and wonderful fun geeks. How could you not be to be working on this? And Daniel, I should add, he was is a hardcore Tolkien fan. He grew up playing role-play games and like Dungeons and Dragons. It was a dream job for him to come out of college and start working on The Lord of the Rings. So he has approached all of this from a love of the source material and from the books. And yes, he was involved in the production of both film trilogies and now in these books, but he's not someone who was born and bred and created inside of a company. He's someone who, like I said, truly came to it from a love of the books. And hopefully that's in here, interview after interview that I read about people who worked on The Lord of the Rings were people who were massive Tolkien fans who wanted to be involved for the sheer passion and love of the material, and that shows. That completely shows. Some of the time these people at What a Workshop were working for no pay. They did get compensated once the money came in, but there was this weird time in between when they didn't know if the films were going to be greenlit or funded, and Peter Jackson was up here in Hollywood swinging left and right trying to get them funded, and eventually, obviously, it all came together. But that's dedication, folks. So, go on, get your copy of Middle-earth from script to screen. If it tickles your fancy, I'll be happy to sign it for you and send it back. Yeah, there you have it, folks. It'd make a great Christmas present. In fact, if you want it, suspicious that it's coming out November 21st, isn't it? Right before Black Friday? Or is that on No, that's right before Black Friday. So maybe Amazon will have a price break on it. We'll see. Okay, guys. Thanks for watching. Sorry I wasn't answering a specific question this episode, but I'll get back to that next time. And keep the questions coming. Okay, so for me, and what am I going to sign off with? Something really cool. For me, in this really stylish dollar store lint roller, wish you very fond farewell.